I received the comment, I know Lauren has the right attitude, thank you. I find myself having a hard time not obsessing over numbers. I think just concentrating on how you feel and thinking positively about yourself is the key. Intelligent comment. It refers to a lot of our desire as women and some men to work towards having a lower weight. We don't even have necessarily an ideal weight. We just like the concept of reducing our weight. It's become so chronic in our society that we start to use terms such as, I've been good today, meaning you haven't eaten a lot of food or you haven't eaten a lot of sugar. Or I've been bad today, meaning you've eaten cake or something like that. So we've got to the point with society that we refer to our patterns and behaviours of eating. We refer that back to whether we're good or bad, whether we're acceptable in society or whether we're not acceptable. And we've got to the point in society that we are judging people by the amount of weight they are carrying. Don't misunderstand me. I believe that we need to be a functional weight. A weight or a size or a lean body fat ratio, muscle to fat ratio, that is healthy and looks after our heart. Yes. But when we get to the point that we are consistently depriving ourselves of food and we are living in a state of denial, deprivation, diet, calorie watching, what on earth have we got to? What on earth are we doing? That we are defining our worth as people by how thin we are. Oh, I'm feeling thin. I feel better about myself today. Oh, I'm having a fat day. Oh my goodness, it's just terrible. But to say, okay, our attitude's all wrong, let's just revise our attitude, is not so simple. Let's look back. Let's look back to where this comes from. Firstly, it comes from our caregivers, and I don't blame the caregivers. It comes from our caregivers. Our caregivers have brought us up with the same words. Here, reward yourself, Lauren. Here's some cake. You've been good today. You've done well in your exams. Here's some lollies. So reward. We reward through food. And we can punish through food, through dieting. So our worth as people is starting to be defined by our patterns of eating. And then we're assessing people and judging people in society depending on their fat. Again, we need to have a reasonably low fat in order to be healthy. And I think that's important, really important as a society that we start to work towards that. So our upbringing, our caregivers have socialized us to be in a state of deprivation, denial and diet. So unhealthy. That is compounded by the stories that we hear and the stories that we're fed as infants and young people. We're given Barbie dolls with their tiny little waists and the big breasts and the blonde hair and the perfect nose and the perfect flawless skin without pores. And oh my goodness, no fluid under the eyes, of course. So we're given these petite little Barbie dolls and we're read stories about Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. These women that need to be rescued by a domineering, controlling other. They need to be rescued and they need to look perfect and they need to be so feminine. It's the ultra-feminism of when I say feminism, I mean the hyper-feminist stereotype that we've been brought up with, that we're meant to be submissive and sexy and attractive and airbrushed. We need to be oh so airbrushed. So we read our children stories about happily ever after where we meet a Prince Charming and we are so slim and so flawless and so beautiful. and there is no scope for anything else. Tell me, did Snow White, was she a mum? And did she balance a career with being a mum and all the pressures of today's life? Does she cook and does she clean and does she look after, apart from the 7 dwarfs? I bet they aren't as hard as being a mum. How did she cope with a work-life balance? So we, in our society, not only are we meant to be fantastic career women, not only are we meant to look sensational and be very, very sexy, but we're also supposed to be thin. Could someone explain to me, please, how women are sexy and thin? Aren't they kind of mutually exclusive? Isn't sexy about being a little bit buxom and having a little bit of hips and a little bit of a sexy wobble and attitude? Okay. I am seriously dissatisfied with the media. This airbrushing is absolutely wrong. Women have so much potential to discover themselves and change the world and change the environment and maximize who they are as people. You have infinite potential. Your potential is held back by your perception of yourself physically. How can we define our incredible worth by our appearance? Do we realize how crazy that is? If we define our worth by our appearance, my goodness, after the age of 22, we start aging. We start aging at age 22. So how can we define our worth? By our appearance. And after the age of 22, our muscles start to atrophy. And it's harder, not impossible, but harder to contain or consistently have muscle density. Forget dieting. Increase your muscular density. Get some muscle. Muscle is so empowering. Okay, so we've talked about the giraffes, the airbrushed giraffes. For heaven's sake, don't buy the magazines. Don't have the magazines around your house. Snow White, Rapunzel, Happily Ever After. How about Snow White, or who is it, Sleeping Beauty, wakes up and she says to Prince Charming, "Excuse me, I've been asleep for 100 years. I need to go out and have a big bowl of spaghetti bolognese. And I don't want you to rescue me. I'm going to go and find myself as a person. And who I am is not defined by the way I look. So I reject the term Sleeping Beauty. I'm going to be aware Sarah instead of Sleeping Beauty. I am so much greater than my appearance." The problem we have and why we are so fixated with weight is our society has taught us to define ourselves by the scales. And we are infinitely going to fail if we define ourselves by the scales. How about we define ourselves on what sort of mothers we are and what sort of human beings we bring into a society? And how about we define ourselves on how little or how we do not judge others? Or how about we define ourselves on the impact we have on the environment? Or how about we define ourselves on our ability to be aware of the moment and feel peace and don't sweat the small stuff? Why, when we have such infinite power, do we hamstrung, limit, handicap, hold ourselves back by defining ourselves by weight? How ridiculous is it? And let's look at sexy. Sexy is not sexy without cellulite. Say it again. Sexy is not sexy without cellulite. Cellulite is sexy. Without cellulite, there is no sexy. Because sexy is about sensuality. Sexy is about being buxom, having a bit of hip, having a bit of wobble, having a bit of attitude, having a bit of cellulite. Yeah. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There's been too much damage done by the media. There's been too much damage done by our caregivers. It's not their fault. It's going to take a process. Let's take statement by statement. Let's start by not saying, I've been good today, I haven't eaten chocolate cake. Let's start by saying, I've been kind to myself. I've eaten today for function. I've eaten today to support my spirit. I've eaten today to protect the environment. I've eaten today as an example to my daughter. Let's start with rejecting the words good and bad about food. Let's start by rejecting the scales. Let's start by redefining what beauty is. Let's not read Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty was a silly woman. She wasn't asleep for 100 years. She was watching Biggest Loser, and she was reading magazines about dieting and calorie counting. That's why she was asleep. She doesn't want Prince Charming. She wants Prince Authentic, that allows her to go off and find herself and says, go off and find yourself, and I will be here to support the person you are. And I love you for your wrinkles, and I love that cellulite. Don't ever change. I love you just the way you are, and I'm so incredibly lucky to age by your side, and every wrinkle under your eye is a reflection of the beautiful life that you've lived. How about that? So let's throw out the scales and let's grow muscle and a bit of sexy cellulite. Inhale in through the nose and exhale out. Inhale in through the nose and